I never meant to stand out that night. In fact, I walked into the Hawthorne Gala praying I'd blend into the wallpaper. I was the girl who'd cried in her car just a week earlier after losing both my job and the man I thought I'd marry. The girl who had $62 in her bank account. The girl wearing a borrowed black dress that fit just well enough to pretend it was mine. Maya Thompson, 28. Heart bruised. Bank account empty. And tonight? Entirely out of place. The ballroom didn't care. It shimmered with gold and crystal and old money. Like a world built for people who never worried about rent or second-hand shoes. Everyone looked effortless, elegant, perfect. Everyone except me. I remember standing near the edge of the room, clutching a glass of champagne that tasted more like guilt than celebration. Thinking, I don't belong here. I just wanted one night where I didn't feel broken. But God has a strange sense of humor, because the moment I whispered that thought to myself, I felt it. A gaze. Not casual. Not passing. A slow, deliberate pull like someone reaching for me without moving a muscle. I looked up. Across the ballroom, surrounded by powerful men in tuxedos and jeweled women who practically glowed, stood a man cut from another world, entirely. Lorenzo De Luca. Even before I knew his name. I felt the gravity of him, tall, composed, carved from shadow and authority. He stood with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to speak to dominate a room. And yet, amid all the polished elegance around him, he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me. I tore my eyes away, pretending I hadn't noticed. But it didn't matter. His stare settled against my skin like heat from a fire, steady, unwavering, impossible to ignore. Rumors floated around the ballroom like perfume. The De Luca family, old Italian blood, money older than the city itself, influence whispered in backrooms and behind locked doors. Someone like him didn't look at women like me, but he was. The next time I looked back, he was already moving, cutting through the crowd, with slow, purposeful strides, like he had already decided exactly where he needed to be. A ripple went through the room, subtle but unmistakable. People stepped aside without being asked. Others lowered their voices. Even the air seemed to shift. I froze. By the time he reached me, my heart was pounding so loudly, I was certain he could hear it. "Good evening," he said, his voice quiet, accented, warm in a way that didn't match the steel in his eyes. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." I didn't know how to answer. My mouth moved before my brain caught up. I'm just not used to places like this. He studied me. Eyes deep, dark, unreadable. I noticed. He wasn't smiling. Not yet. But he looked at me like he saw more than the cheap dress and the borrowed confidence. He saw the exhaustion under my makeup, the breath I kept swallowing to appear composed, the sadness tucked neatly behind my practiced smile. "You don't enjoy crowds," he said softly, "and you keep checking the exits." The accuracy startled me. "No one notices that." "I do." Then he extended a hand I had no business taking. "Dance with me." I laughed nervously, shaking my head. "I'm not a good dancer." "Then let me lead." Something in his tone, gentle but absolute, brushed against a part of me I didn't realize had gone numb. I placed my hand in his, and the world fell away. His hand settled at the small of my back with a warmth that made me shiver. The music swelled around us, and somehow my feet moved without stumbling. He guided me effortlessly. Like he'd danced with me before. Like he knew my rhythm, my hesitations, every place I tried to hide. For the first time in years, someone truly saw me. He didn't make small talk. He didn't flatter. He simply watched me with that steady, consuming gaze. the kind that made my pulse flutter and my fears quiet. "Why do you look so surprised?" he asked. "Because," I said breathlessly, "men like you don't look at women like me." His thumb brushed my spine soft, almost reverent. "Maybe men like me have been looking in the wrong places." It was too much. Too intimate. Too intense. I stepped back as the song ended, searching for air. "I should find my friend." I managed. "She left 10 minutes ago," he replied, "with the man in the navy suit. She won't be back." The realization flickered through me. She'd abandoned me for a wealthy bachelor faster than I could blink. I should have been used to it. But somehow, Lorenzo's presence softened the sting. "I don't want you to be alone," he said. "It's fine. I'm used to being alone." He looked at me then, not my dress, not my face, but into me. "You shouldn't be. Even now." I can't explain why I followed him when he offered his arm. Maybe it was the loneliness, the exhaustion, the need to feel like I mattered to someone, even for a moment. Or maybe it was the way he looked at me, not like prey, not like a passing distraction, but like something he'd already chosen. He led me out a side door to a private terrace bathed in moonlight. The city glittered below us, wrapped in silver and silence. I exhaled for the first time that night. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Not as beautiful as the company," he said, almost too quietly for me to hear. He rested his forearms against the stone railing, turning slightly toward me. "Tell me one truth. Maya Thompson. Just one, yes. Something real. Something you don't tell strangers at charity galas." I swallowed hard, unsure why the words came so easily. "I'm afraid," I said, afraid of ending up like my mother, afraid of being alone at 50, wondering why I wasn't enough for anyone. For a long moment, he didn't answer. He didn't offer empty comfort. He didn't downplay my fear. He simply listened, and that silence, that deep, steady attention felt more intimate than any touch. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. "Your mother's fate is not yours," he said. "And you are far more than enough." The warmth in his words spread through me, fragile and dangerous all at once. I should have walked away. I should have thanked him and gone home. I should have remembered that men like him live in worlds built on secrets and shadows. But instead, I let him guide me down a quiet hallway only the staff seemed to know about. At the end was a door guarded by 2 men who straightened when they saw him. They stepped aside instantly. Inside was a private lounge, dim, luxurious, untouched by the noise of the gala. Men lounged in leather chairs, speaking in low voices. A bartender froze mid-pour when Lorenzo entered. Respect, fear, a subtle, electric shift in the air. This wasn't just a wealthy man. This was someone powerful. Someone obeyed. Someone whispered about behind closed doors. And he'd brought me here. He gestured for me to sit. No pressure. No expectation. Just an invitation. And as I lowered myself into the soft leather, my heart thrummed in my chest with a simple, terrifying realization. This man didn't just belong to another world. He ruled it. And for reasons I couldn't yet understand, tonight, he had chosen me. I didn't expect the night to continue after he led me into that private lounge. And I definitely didn't expect what came next. "Maya," he said softly, "come with me." I should have hesitated. I should have listened to the small, sensible voice in my head reminding me I had work in the morning, even if work now meant rewriting my resume for the 10th time. But instead, I found myself following him out a back entrance, down a quiet street, and into a world only he seemed to belong to. The city lights were softer here, the noise fading into a hum. A single black car waited at the curb. The driver bowed his head slightly when Lorenzo approached. This was not normal. None of this was normal. Inside the car, he watched me with a question in his eyes. "Are you hungry?" I laughed softly. "Starving. But I doubt anything's open at this hour." His lips curved into the slightest smile. "Something is." 15 minutes later, we arrived at a small Italian restaurant, tucked between two dark storefronts. No lights. No customers. No sign of life until the moment Lorenzo pushed the door open, and the entire building seemed to wake. Lights flickered on. Voices murmured greetings in Italian. A grey-haired man rushed forward, grabbing Lorenzo in a tight embrace, before turning to stare at me with astonished delight. "Beautiful," he declared, taking my hands as if greeting a long-lost niece. "Very beautiful. Come. Sit." I blinked in confusion. "Did we just open this place?" Lorenzo's eyes warmed. "It's my family's. Technically mine now." The staff treated him like royalty, not with fear, but reverence. Respect. Loyalty. The kind given to someone who has earned it, not demanded it. I watched in silence as he exchanged a few words in Italian with the chef, the bartender, the waiter. They all looked at him with something I couldn't fully name. Not just respect. Responsibility. He pulled out a chair for me, surprising me again with the gentleness of it. When he sat across from me, the restaurant felt like our own private world. Plate after plate arrived handmade pasta, fresh bread, wine that tasted like velvet, and somewhere between the first sip of wine and the last bite of tiramisu, the walls I'd spent years building began to crack. He didn't ask questions the way men usually do, not the light, superficial things that fill empty conversations. He asked about my dreams, my fears, my childhood, my relationship with my mother, what I wanted from my life if money were no longer a concern. It was terrifying. How easy it was to talk to him. Terrifying and freeing. "What about you?" I asked, needing to shift the focus. His eyes lowered to his glass. "I wanted to be an architect." The answer shocked me. An architect. Yes. I loved designing things. Buildings. Cities. Spaces where people could feel safe. "What happened? My father died," he said simply. And the world he left behind required a different kind of structure. There was something devastating in the way he said it. Duty. Not desire. Obligation. Not choice. "And the books?" I asked, gently. "You mentioned you collect them." His expression softened instantly, as though I had opened a door to a part of him he guarded closely. "They were my mother's first love," he said. "And mine. By inheritance." He spoke of rare editions, ancient leather covers, ink faded by time. As he spoke, he wasn't the man the city whispered about. He was a boy who once dreamed in blueprints and poetry. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I saw the vulnerability beneath the steel, and I realized I wanted to see more. Hours passed without notice, until the restaurant was quiet again. The staff tidying up while pretending not to stare at us with knowing smiles. When we finally left, the sky was deep navy, the streets empty, the world silent. The drive back to my apartment was thick with unspoken tension, warm, magnetic, almost unbearably tender. His hand rested near mine on the center console. Close enough to touch, close enough to feel the heat of him. When he pulled up to my building, embarrassment pricked at me. The peeling paint, the flickering light, the cracked stairs leading up to my third-floor walk-up. But he said nothing. No judgment, no discomfort, just a quiet, steady presence beside me. He walked me to my door. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's leftover dinner. but he didn't seem to notice. Or care. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For all of this. He reached out, brushing a piece of hair behind my ear. The touch was feather light, yet it lit every nerve in my body. I should be the one thanking you, he murmured. Tonight was unexpected. He leaned in just enough that I felt the warmth of his breath against my cheek. He kissed me there, soft, slow, lingering, and then he hesitated. I don't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. But the moment our lips met, the world fell away again. His hands framed my face with a tenderness I didn't know men like him could possess. It wasn't a hungry kiss. It wasn't rushed. It was a promise, the kind that steals your breath and your sanity. When he finally pulled away, my knees felt weak. Good night, Maya, he whispered. I didn't sleep a second that night. The next morning, the universe sent another surprise. A box waited at my door, white, ribboned, far too elegant for my apartment. Inside was a gown, emerald green, silk, beautiful in a way that made my throat tighten. Beside it, a pair of heels, and a single emerald earring that sparkled like something pulled from a fairy tale. The note was simple. For tonight, you deserve beauty around you. L. My hands trembled reading it. No one had ever sent me something so thoughtful, so deliberate, so undeniably romantic. That evening, he took me to an art gallery. The moment we walked in, I understood the difference between wealth and power. People cheered. Eyes followed him. Some watched with respect, others with fear. But when he placed his hand at the small of my back, guiding me through the room, it wasn't just a gesture, it was a statement. Then she appeared, a woman with perfect hair, perfect posture, and a perfectly poisonous smile. Well, she said coldly, the charity cases get prettier every year. I stiffened. Lorenzo did not. Sophia, he said quietly. You'll tire of her, she said, eyes slicing toward me. You always do. The room went still, but Lorenzo didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped closer to me, the air around him turning sharp. Lethal. Controlled. Leave, he said. Just one word. Soft enough not to draw attention. Dangerous enough to empty the space around us. And she left. My heart hammered. Not from fear, but from the realization of how fiercely, instinctively he protected me. But the fantasy shattered 2 days later. Lorenzo didn't come by that night. Or the next. Then the calls stopped. His driver came instead. He said little. Only, there's been a situation. I was moved to a penthouse I had never seen before. High above the city. Guarded. Silent. Cold. Hours turned into a day into 2, 2 into 3. I paced. I worried. I replayed every detail of every moment we'd shared. Then I overheard the truth. Someone had tried to kill him. The news hit like a punch to the ribs. Sudden. Breath-stealing. Brutal. In that moment, all my fear, all my hesitation, all my attempts to stay rational disintegrated. Because losing him, truly losing him, was a thought I couldn't bear. And that was when I finally understood. I wasn't just drawn to him. I was already falling. I didn't expect him to come back. 3 days alone in a penthouse that didn't feel like mine. Surrounded by silence and shadows. Taught me one thing. Loving a man like Lorenzo De Luca meant learning how to live with uncertainty. And fear. And unanswered questions that kept me pacing the floor at 3 a.m. But nothing prepared me for what happened on the 4th day. I was in the gym. running harder than I ever had in my life. Trying to outpace the dread, curling like smoke in my chest. Sweat clung to my skin. My breaths came sharp and uneven. I didn't notice the elevator doors open behind me. I only felt that familiar weight of a gaze that always found me first. When I turned, he was there. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, a shadow carved from exhaustion and bruised strength. His jaw was darkened by a fading mark. His left eye was slightly swollen. His shoulders carried a heaviness I'd never seen on him before. But he was alive, and that was all it took. I ran to him before I could think. Before pride or fear or logic could intervene, I collided with his chest. Heat and relief flooding through me like a breaking wave. He wrapped his arms around me instantly, fiercely, as if he had been holding himself together with sheer will just to get back to this moment. Maya. He breathed against my hair. Voice raw. God. I'm sorry. I hit his chest once, not hard, but enough to tell him everything I couldn't form into words. You left, I whispered. You disappeared. I know. His hand tightened at the back of my neck, grounding me, steadying his own trembling. I stayed away to keep you safe. But staying away from you, his voice broke. The smallest crack in a man made of steel. Staying away from you was the hardest thing I've ever done. I pulled back, needing to see his face, the truth in his eyes. What happened to you? He exhaled slowly, letting the facade fall away piece by piece. Come with me. In the penthouse living room. He didn't sit. He stood with his back to the window, hands braced on the edge of the table, as if gathering the strength to open doors long kept locked. I owe you the truth, he said. All of it. And for the next hour, he told me everything. About the empire his father built. About the dangerous loyalty expected of him. About the men who envied his position, despised his power, or wanted him dead. About the attack, the bullets, the shattered glass, the betrayal that had come from closer than he expected. He told me about the choices he'd made to protect his family, to protect the city from people worse than he was, to protect me. When he finally looked up, something unguarded flickered in his eyes. I won't lie to you. My world is not clean. It never will be. But I will never put you in a cage. If you walk away from me, Maya, I'll let you go. The words sliced through me. Beautiful and brutal all at once. But I don't want to lose you, he continued, voice low, almost hesitant. I think I've loved you since the moment you looked back at me in that ballroom. Silence filled the room heavy, fragile, trembling with possibility. I took a breath, then another. My heart pounded in my chest like it wanted out. I'm scared, I whispered. I'm terrified of your world. The danger, the enemies, the shadows. But his face tensed, as if bracing for goodbye. But I'm more terrified of losing you. His breath caught, not dramatically, not loudly, just a soft, stunned inhale that told me everything. I choose you. I said, not your money, not the gifts. You. For the first time since I'd met him. Lorenzo looked almost undone. He crossed the room in 2 strides and took my face in his hands, forehead resting against mine, breath warm and uneven. You don't know what that means to me, he murmured. But I did, because the moment I chose him, the fear didn't disappear. It transformed. It became part of us. No longer something that chased me, but something I held with both hands. Love was a risk. So was happiness. But so was he. And I had chosen all of it. 6 months later, I barely recognized myself. The woman who once borrowed a black dress for a charity gala had been replaced by someone stronger, steadier, unafraid of her own worth. I'd moved between Lorenzo's coastal home and his city penthouse, splitting my life between waves and skyscrapers. I'd begun writing again stories, essays, things I'd abandoned long before him. And for the first time, publishers were calling me. And Lorenzo, he was changing too. Not abandoning who he was, that would be impossible and dishonest, but building something he chose. Something he could be proud of. A community centre in the North End. A place for kids who needed hope. A place where he could put his love of architecture and his desire to do good into something real. He named the project after me. I cried when he told me. He held me until I stopped. We weren't perfect. We had nights where his phone rang at 2 a.m. Nights when fear crept into the corners of my mind. Nights when he returned home later than I wished. Tired and haunted. But we had something neither of us expected, peace. Not constant, but earned. Shared. Treasure enough to make the danger worth facing. The evening he proposed. The sky was the colour of soft gold, fading into pink where it touched the horizon. Waves crashed gently against the cliffs below his coastal house, a rhythm that felt like our own heartbeat. He took my hand and led me outside. The warmth of his palm, familiar and grounding. Maya, he said quietly. I wanted to wait for the perfect moment. But I realized the perfect moment is wherever you are. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. When he opened it, I didn't gasp. I couldn't. My breath simply stopped. The ring wasn't extravagant. It wasn't ostentatious. It wasn't meant to impress the world. It was meant for me. A modest emerald surrounded by delicate diamonds, a quiet symbol of everything we had survived. Everything we had chosen. You, he said. A voice unsteady for the first time I'd ever heard. We're the only thing in my world that ever felt real. Will you be my wife? My partner? My equal. In every way. The word equal was what broke me. Not protected. Not kept. Not owned. Equal. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. Yes. I whispered. Yes. His relief was so palpable it felt like a warm wind brushing my skin. He slipped the ring onto my finger, with hands that had built empires and broken men but held me with reverence. Later, as we stood together, overlooking the ocean, his arm wrapped around my waist, I realized something. I hadn't just chosen Lorenzo. I had chosen danger, and devotion, and desire, and a future that wouldn't fit neatly into anyone else's expectations. But it was ours. A life built on passion and trust, and the kind of love that doesn't fade when the world grows dark. A love worth the risk. Together, we walked back inside, the beginning of a future we would face, side by side. Whatever came next. Together. Always. If this story touched you, if you found a little hope, a little escape, or a little magic in Maya and Lorenzo's journey, I'd love to hear from you. Please don't forget to like the video. It helps more people discover these stories. And if you enjoy love that heals, a love that protects, and love that chooses you back, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that love, real love, still exists in the world. And most of all, tell me in the comments, would you have chosen Lorenzo or walked away from the danger? I read every message you leave, and your words mean more than you know. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And I'll meet you in the next story.